Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Prapta Sakalyana Gunana Vasya Vande Guru Shri Charana Ravrindam Gunana Vasya Vande Guru Shri Charana Ravrindam Vande Guru Shri Charana Ravrindam Vande Guru Shri Charana Ravindam Vande Guru Shri Charana Ravindam Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Romanchakam Pasu Taranga Baju Vande Guru Shri Charana Ravrindam Vande Guru Shri Charana Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingaratanma Niramajanado Yuktasya Bhaktamsa Niyonjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charana Ravrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavad Prasada Satana Trupta Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavad Prasada Satana Trupta Hari Bhakta Kridvaiva Trupte Bhajata Sadeva Vande Guru Shri Charana Ravrindam Shiradikama Kavayarapara Madhura Leela Gunarupanamna Pratikshana Swa Dhanalopasya Vande Guru Shri Charana Ravindam Ne Kunjayuno Ratikeli Siddhai Jajali Bhir Jukti Apekshaniya Ne Kunjayuno Ratikeli Siddhai Jajali Bhir Jukti Apekshaniya Tatrati Daksha Ati Bhala Bhasya Vande Guru Shri Charana Ravrindam यस्याद्धरितेन समस्तशास्त्रे उक्तस्तथा भव्यतैव सर्वे किन्तु प्रभोज प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुराश्रीचरणरविन्दम् यस्या प्रसादा भगवत्प्रसादो यस्या प्रसादं न गति कुतोऽपि यस्या प्रसादं न गति कुतोऽपि दयां स्तुवं तस्य यसा त्रिसन्ध्यं वन्दे गुरुश्री चरणरविन्दम् ध्यायां स्तुवं तस्य यसा त्रिसन्ध्यं वन्दे गुरुश्री चरणरविन्दम् विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदान्त स्वामिने इति नामिने नमः विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादिशतारिणे गदाधर शिवसरि पौरा भक्त वृंद श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसरि पौरा भक्त वृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसरि पौरा भक्त वृंद श्री कृष्ण Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Nama Krishna, Jadavaya Nama, Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama, Gopal Govindara Shrimadhusudan, Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita, Hare Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raguna. Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhav, Radha Nila Madhav, Radhe Radha Nila Madhav, Radha Nila Madhav, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo, Haribo. Jai Vishwapara Paramsa Prabhaya Kacharya Stuttara Sarashishimat Iskon Pratishta Viviti Samstapakacharya Vaishnav Saramani Gaura Priyajana Krishna Prema Bhakti Datapatita Pavana. His Divine Grace Abhacharavina Bhakti Viranta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada Ji Ki Jai, Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patitu Dhari Ki Jai, Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhakti Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasa Guru Satguru Swami Prabhu Ki Jai, Nama Acharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai, Nanda Guru Vaishnavrind Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavind Ki Jai, Jai Param Dayal Se Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai, Jai Pramanama Sankirtane Kajanaka Prema Purushottama Sachinandana Shman Guru Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Guru Hari Mahavrana Avatar Ki Jai, Guru Kera Pramadhana Harinam Sankirtan Jai Ki Jai, Yoga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai, Brihatnidanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gopakutna Radha Kund Samakun Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Brajabhum Vrindavan Maturdam Ki Jai, The Lordship Shri Radha Nilamadhava Ki Jai, Shri Mayapur Navadvip Eka Chakradam Ki Jai, Paramakaruna Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai, Shri Purushottama Ketra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu, Shrimati Subhadra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagwan Ki Jai, Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Kanishingare Bhagwan Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Krishmati Radharani Ki Jai, Shamaveta Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai, Nitai Gaurari Pramanande Haribo. All glories to the assembly bodies, all glories to the assembly bodies, all glories to the assembly bodies, all glories, glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gaurang. Did you want to try Nishinga or Tulsi? Nishinga?
I will try. I will sing from.
Which song?
Nothing more.
Namaste Narasingaya. Hiranyakashipu Vaksha Jayasilatanka Nakalaye Ito Nisinga Parato Nisinga Jaya Jato Jato Jamitato Nisinga Bhair Nisinga Hridaye Nisinga Narasingha Madim Sharanam Prapade Tabakara Kamala Varenaka Adabhuta Sringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanavinga Kesavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Kesavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jaya Nisingare Jaya Nisingare Jaya Nisingare Jaya Nisingare Jaya Bhakta Prahlad Jaya Bhakta Prahlad Jaya Bhakta Prahlad Jaya Bhakta Prahlad Jai Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jai Jaya Gurudev जय जय। श्री वृंदाई तुलसी दिव्याय प्रियाय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी शतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाई तुलसी दिव्याय प्रियाय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी शतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसी दिव्याय प्रियाय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी शतवताय नमो नमः। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः। तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो अभिलाषी।
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 चित्तो मारा शरण लो।
चित्तो मार शरण तारा पंच पूर्णा।
कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वासी।
तुम्हें कृपा करे करो तरे वृंदावन वासी। मोरे
Nayane Hari Bo Sada Jugal Parasi
Aminayane Revo Sada Jugalaru Parasi
Danadharo Sakhiranu Gata Koro
Eni Vedanadhara Sakhirayana Gatakara
Seva Adhitara Diye Guru Nijadasi
Seva Yade Karadiye Karani Jadasi
Dina Krishna Dasi Goe Namora Hoye
Dina Krishna Das Koi Ey Namara
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayena Bhasi
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayena Vasi
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayena Bhasi
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayena Vasi
Jani Kani Japa Pani Namadyadikani Ja Dani Dani Pranashanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
Yani Kane Shapapane Brahmatari Kanisa Tane Tane Pranasanti Pradati Pade Pade
Jani Kani Japa Pani Brahmadyadikani Ja Dani Dani Pranashanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
Jani Kane Shapapane Brahmatari Kanisa Tane Tane Pranasanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
Yani Kani Japa Pani Brahmadyadikani Ja Dani Dani Pranashanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
Jani Kane Shapapane Brahmatari Kanisa Tane Tane Pranasanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Vrinda Devi
Jaya Vrindadevi Jaya Vrindadevi Jaya Vrindadevi Jaya Vrindadevi
Nityai Gaura Hari Bol.
Hari Bol
Hari
Hari
Bol.
Bol
Hari Bol. Nityai Gaura Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol
श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की
Jai Shri Vrindayai Tulasi Devayai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Shatavatai Namo Namaha Vrindayai Tulasi Devayai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Shatavatai Namo Namaha Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Shatavatai Namo Namaha Krishna Bhakti Pradidevi Shatavatai Jeshmati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai O Tulsi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of your speech is fulfilled. Bestow you myself upon me, making resident of Mangala. I desire that when my residence pleasure grows to Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision I will always behold the beautiful person Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of carry hands on the right. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise. May I always swim in love with Shri Radha and Govinda. Srimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kastakam Ki Jai. Jaito Darpanamajanam Pavamadavani Vapanam Shri Akari Vachandika Vitaranam Vidya Badhu Jivanam Ananda Mudivardhanam Padipadam Punamita Shadanam Savatmasnam Param Param Vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Vamdha Yasavashati Tatrati Kanyamita Snanena Kala Itadrishi Tava Kuta Bhagavan Mamati Durdhaivam Idrisham Yajanina Nuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sashnuna Amani Amani Kirtaniya Sadari Dhanam Najanam Nasundari Kavitamba Jagari Shakamayi Mama Janmani Janmani Ishwari Bhavatar Bhakti Raitu Kitwai Vainandatanuja Kinkaram Paditamam Visame Bhava Buddho Vipaya Tava Pada Pankaja Stitadule Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galora Shrudharaya Vadanam Gadagadharudaya Gira Pulakairi Chitam Bapukada Tavanamagrahane Bhavisati Jugaitam Nimeshena Chakshusha Pravrsa Itam Shunya Itam Jagata Sarvam Govinda Virahe Rame Aslishvapadharatam pinashtumam adarshnamarmahatam karotuva jatatatthava viradhatulam puta matpranatastu saivana para. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Krishtakam ki jai. Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradayati Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Manapur Krishna Namo Vishnu Paraya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prajani Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pasa. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large. God spreads the rays of the benediction milk. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which you are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by holy names. But I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself Lord on straw in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your casual devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I am falling in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord,
Holy
my
name of
eyes
God.
will be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name. Will my voice choke up, or will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in wailing your absence. And I know one by Krishna is my Lord, and he should remain so, even if he sandals me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, but he's always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. He died. So there are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme, the was to dedicate a life of propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. Consider the names of
Demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, to be equal to or
or
independent
independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literatures or literatures and persons of Vedic devotion. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretations to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities of strength, chanting holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which often Vedas as sportive activities Dharmakanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person of the glories of the holy name. 10. To not have complete faith, chanting the holy names, and to retain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It
It's also an offense to be attended while chanting.
Every
Every
devotee
devotee
who
claims
claims
to
to
be
be Vaishnava must
carefully
carefully guard
guard
against
against
influences in order to quickly achieve success.
Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakapa Tarabhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevicha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. Om Aganyat Timirandasya Yananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutali Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Pachakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Sa Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Saidvaitam Sabadutam Parichana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahaguna Lalita Shri Visakha Nivitam Sa Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Vaskatya Desatarine Namo Budaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Namini Shri Varsavanavi Devi Dayitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vigyana Dayane Prabhave Maha Madhur Ujvala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktita Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vikrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Apasidanta Dvantaharine Namo Gora Kishwaraya Shakshat Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitananda Namine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gora Virbhava Bhumestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sabhavama Sri Jagannathayate Namaha Vanchakalpa Tarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vaja Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gurachase Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhakta Avataram Bhakta Akhyalam Namami Bhakta Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Suratur Bangor Mama Manda Matergati Matsava Swapadambo Jo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vindaranya Kalpadumadaha Shimad Ratnagara Simhasanastito Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prastadi Bihi Sevyamano Smarami Shiman Rasa Rasa Rambivam Sivata Tatastita Karsan Venus Maner Gopir Gopinatak Striyestuna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Vaitikadada Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadi Radhe Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakara Sadmatsukalpa Vriksha Laksa Vritesa Surabhi Rabhipaliyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambrahma Sevyamanam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Venum Pranando Aravinda Dalayataksham Bharhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Visesa Sobam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasadvanamaya Vamsi Ratnam Ganam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shaman Jivanga Lalita Nita Prakasam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vikrahasya Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadi Mananta Rupa Madhyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vede Sadurlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastakoti Satavatsada Sampragam Yovayo Ratapi Manaso Manipungamanam Sopyasti Yat Prapadasim Yavichinti Tatve Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chaitam Jagananda Kotim Yas Chakti Rasta Jagananda Chayayadanta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Deo Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Busa Suktarya Meva Nigama Patitai Suvanti Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitabi Tabirya Eva Nijarupa Tayakalabi Goloka Eva Nivisata Kilatma Bhuto Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksa Deva Hidesa Vilokayanti Yam Shamba Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Menatista Nana Avatara Makarod Bhuvanesa Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavad Paramampamamyo Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyag Prabha Prabhuvato Jagananda Koti Koti Svasesa Vasadadi Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Sesa Bhutam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Mayahi Yasya Jagadanda Satani Sute Traigunya Tad Visaya Veda Vitaya Mano Sadva Valambi Parasatva Misuta Satvam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Matayamana Suya Prani Nam Patifilam Smaratamu Vaitya Lila Yatena Bhuvanani Jayaya Jasram Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nijitamni Tale Chatasya Devi Mahesa Haridama Sute 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 Te Prabhavini Chaya Vichasyena Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Sustistati Pralaya Sadhava Sakti Reka Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichanda Rupam Apyasya Chichestatesa Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shiram Yata Dadivikara Visesi Yogat Sanjayate Nahitata Pritakasti Hetu Yasam Bhutama Pitatai Samapaitikariat Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Departure Ev Hita Santanam Abhyupetya Dipayate Vivita Hetu Samanu Dharma Yastadra Ev Hita Vishnutaya Vibhati Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narnava Jalibajitisma Yoga Nidrama Nanta Jagaranda Saroma Kupa Adhara Saktim Avalambya Param Samurtim Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nisvasita Kalamatavalamya Jivanti Loma Villaja Jagaranda Nata Vishnu Mahansa Yasya Kalavi Sesu Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Basmanya Tasma Sakalesan Jesu Tejas Sviyam Kiyat Prakatayat Apitatva Tatra Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidana Karta Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yatpada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbadwande Pranama Samayesa Gnadi Raja Vignan Vinantam Alamas Jagatrayasya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahika Ganamam Bhumarudisasya Kalasta Tatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Amcha Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschak Suresa Savita Sagilagrahana Raja Samasta Suramurti Rasesu Teja Yasyagaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Sutayastapam Sri Brahma Dikita Patagavate Yastajiva Yadata Matra Vipava Prakata Prabhava Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrinda Gopa Matavendra Mahoswa Karma Bandhan Rupa Valabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nirdhati Kintu Chabakti Bhajam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Kroda Kama Saja Pranayadi Biti Vatsaya Moho Gurgora Vasevya Bhava Sanchintya Tasya Sadvisintana Mahapurete Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpatara Vajrama Bhumi Chintamani Ganama Itoyam Amritam Kata Ganam Nadyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriyasa Kechiranandam Jyoti Parama Apitata Svadyam Apityasa Yatra Siradi Bhisravidi Surabi Vyasta Suma Nimesa Dakyo Vava Jitana Trapi Samaya Bhaje Svita Dipam Tamaham Iha Golokamitiam Vedanta Ste Santakshati Varachara Katipaya Shiguru Astika prayers, Ki J. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy just as the cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. Or from my respectful basin at the lotus feet of such spiritual master is an ocean of auspicious quality, chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he is relishing the melodies of pure devotion with his mind, sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. Are from my respectful based on the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in temple worship. Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments and perform other similar worship. Lord, I have my respectful based on the lotus feet of such spiritual master. Spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is liquid, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. I have my respectful based on the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about throughout the unlimited consequential past, erotic and modern inequalities, names and forms. This spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting the gopis at different times, make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavan. I offer my most humble obeisance to the lotus feet of such spiritual master. This spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he's the most confidential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such spiritual master as a bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master at least 3 times a day. I should offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Granth Raj Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 3, text number 25. Tata Katipayad Manasaya Vrishni Bhojan Dakadaya Yayu Prabhasan Samhrista Rata Deva Mihohita. Tata, thereafter, Katipayai, a few, Masai, months passing, Vrishni, the descendants of Vrishni, Bhoja, the descendants of Bhoja, Andaka Adaya, and others like the sons of Andaka. Yayu went, Prabhasam, the place of pilgrimage named Prabhasa, Samhrista, with great pleasure, Ratai, on their chariots, Deva, by Krishna, Vimohita, bewildered. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. A few months passed, and then, bewildered by Krishna, all the descendants of Vrishni, Bhoja, and Andaka, who were incarnations of demigods, went to Prabhasa, while those who were eternal devotees of the Lord did not leave but remained in Dwarka. Okay, now we'll go to text number 26. Kratasantva Pratindevan Rishims Jaiva Tad Ambasa Tarpait Vata Viprebhyo Gavo Bahu Gunadadu. Tatra, there. Snapva, by taking bath. Pitrin, forefathers. Devan, demigods. Rishin, great sages. Cha, also. Eva, certainly. Tat, of that. Ambasa, by the water. Tarpayitvama, by pleasing. Ata, thereupon. Viprebhya, unto the brahmanas. Gava, cows. Bahuguna, greatly useful. Dadu, gave in charity. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. After arriving there, all of them took bath, and with the water of this place of pilgrimage, they offered their respects to the forefathers, demigods, and great sages, and thus satisfied them. They gave cows to the brahmanas in royal charity. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Amongst the devotees of the Lord, there are several divisions, mainly Nityasiddhas and Sadhanasiddhas. The Nityasiddha devotees are never fall down to the region of the material atmosphere, even though they sometimes come into the material plane to execute the mission of the Lord. The Sadhanasiddha devotees are chosen from the conditioned souls. Out of the sadhana devotees, there are mixed and pure devotees. The mixed devotees are sometimes enthusiastic about fruitive activities and are habituated to philosophical speculation. The pure devotees are free from all these mixtures and are completely absorbed in the service of the Lord, regardless of how and where they are situated. Pure devotees of the Lord are not enthusiastic to put aside their service to the Lord in order to go visit holy places of pilgrimage. A great devotee of the Lord in modern times, Sri Narottama Das Thakur, has sung like this. To visit holy places of pilgrimage is another bewilderment of the mind, because devotional service to the Lord at any place is the last word in spiritual perfection. For pure devotees of the Lord, who are completely satisfied with the transcendental loving service of the Lord, there is hardly any necessity to visit the various places of pilgrimage. But those who are not so advanced have the prescribed duties of visiting pilgrimage sites and regularly performing the rituals. The part of the princely order of the Yadu dynasty, who went to Prabhasa, performed all duties to be done in a place of pilgrimage and offered their pious actions to their forefathers and others. As a rule, every human being is indebted to God, the demigods, the great sages, other living entities, people in general, forefathers, etc., for various contributions received from them. Thus everyone is obliged to repay the debt of gratitude. The Yadus, who went to the Prabhasa pilgrimage site, performed their duties by distributing land, gold, and well-nourished cows in royal charity, as described in the following verse. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. After arriving there, all of them took bath, and with the water of this place of pilgrimage they offered their respects to the forefathers, demigods, and great sages, and thus satisfied them. They gave cows to the brahmanas in royal charity. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, we're hearing now about different categories of devotees. And some devotees are nitya siddhas. They have never fallen down from the spiritual world. And sometimes they may come to the spiritual world. Again, they don't fall down, but they perform a specific type of duty that the Lord has asked them to do. And they do it perfectly without being under the control of material nature. And then there are, so those are nitya siddhas. And then there's the sadhana siddha. Sadhana siddha are persons who may have been fallen in the material world, but they attain perfection by following the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness. So that's why it's called sadhana siddha. They attain perfection by doing very pure sadhana, service to the Lord. Okay, so then it says, the sadhana siddha devotees are chosen from the conditioned souls. Out of the sadhana devotees, there are mixed and pure devotees. So even amongst the sadhana devotees, some are mixed still with some material desires, and some are pure. The mixed devotees are sometimes enthusiastic about fruitive activities and are habituated to philosophical speculation. Well, the idea of doing business to improve Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada specifically said, and there might have been some, let's say, wavering in the beginning, but at a certain point he said that our only business is book distribution. We don't need anything else. And he was very upset that many devotees, who had been devotees for 5 to 10 years, began getting involved in business transactions. In the beginning, he supported it somewhat, but then he put a stop to it. He said that our only business should be book distribution, and of course prasadam distribution, and just do sankirtan and preach. So these are difficult to understand sometimes, but Prabhupada is aiming that all these devotees become pure devotees and go back to Godhead, or be liberated eternally in the material world, like Arjuna. He's back to Godhead because he's always with Krishna wherever he's having his pastimes in the material world. So he's always associating with Krishna at different times and places. So how do we understand all this? What happens in the case of someone who's married? Well, there's two positions for someone who's married. One is that they live outside the temple and they maintain themselves by working. And they also come to the temple on a regular basis and perform devotional service. And then there's the completely renounced couple where they live in a temple, but they live separately, and women with the women, men with the men. But they engage in full-time devotional service. Right? So we have these two models. Now, it's not that one is bad, the other is good. They're all good if they all engage in devotional service. And everyone can make spiritual advancement. But for temple devotees, they should not be involved in business activities. They should be involved only in preaching. When I was a brahmachari, years ago, when we had our first little temple, Prabhupada came at that time, and I went out on a morning walk with him. And during that time, I said, Prabhupada, I think we can support this temple financially. I'm going to start a business. He said, your business is to preach Krishna consciousness. If there is one grihastha, he can start business. But your business as a brahmachari is to preach and book distribution, and that's it, nothing else. Worship the deity, go out on Sankirtan. So that's what we did. We would go out on Sankirtan every day. But as time went on, there were some devotees who were married, and I helped them start a business, and they would work on that full time, and at the same time be closely connected to the temple. Okay, so it's important that we understand what is the purpose of life. The purpose of life is to develop love for Krishna. Now, you can do that from any position, but it's always going to be a little harder if you're married, and it could be a lot easier if you're not married. But it doesn't matter, because Prabhupada was married. He had 5 kids, and he was working full time, but yet he was also dedicating time to Krishna consciousness and preparing himself to accomplish the instruction he received when he first met his guru. In the first 30 seconds, his guru said, you should go and preach in the English-speaking world this Krishna consciousness philosophy. And if you have any money, print books. So Prabhupada did those two things. And he prepared himself for it. So, and then he finally did it. So that is the perfection of spiritual life, whether you do it early on or later on. Now, many of his godbrothers were sannyasis, and they were sannyasis way before him. But that did not, that was not a handicap for him, because he had complete faith in his guru's instructions. And when he was free of his entanglement in marriage, he completely dedicated himself and took risks that his godbrothers did not take in order to spread this movement. And because of that, farouche, or strong determination to please his guru and follow strictly Krishna consciousness and not deviate at all, he was given the Shakti, the power, to spread this movement all over the world. Okay, so there are some very interesting points that can be made about this subject. And let me get... in the Krishna book, there's a lot of wonderful purports and information. So it says, in the prayers by the personified Vedas. It says, within the body, there are 5 different departments of existence, known as Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and, at last, Anandamaya. Maya. In the beginning of life, every living entity is food conscious. A child or an animal is satisfied only by getting nice food. This stage of consciousness, in which the goal is to eat sumptuously, is called Annamaya. Anna means food. After this, one lives in the consciousness of being alive. If one can continue his life without being attacked or destroyed, one thinks himself happy. This stage is called Pranamaya, or consciousness of one's existence. After this stage, when one is situated on the mental platform, his consciousness is called Manomaya. The materialistic civilization is primarily situated in these 3 stages, Annamaya, Pranamaya, and Manomaya. The first concern of civilized persons is economic development. The next concern is defense against being annihilated. And the next consciousness is mental speculation, the philosophical approach to the values of life. If by the evolutionary process of philosophical life, one happens to reach the platform of intellectual life and understands that he is not this material body, but a spiritual soul, he is situated in the Vijnanamaya stage. Then, by evolution into spiritual life, he comes to the understanding of the Supreme Lord or the Supreme Soul. When one develops his relationship with Krishna and executes devotional service, that stage of life is called Krishna consciousness, or the Anandamaya stage. Anandamaya is the blissful life of knowledge and eternity. As it is said in the Vedanta Sutra, Anandamaya Vyasat, the Supreme Brahman, or the Supreme Personality Godhead, and the subordinate Brahman, or the living entity, or the Supreme Personality Godhead and the living entities, are both joyful by nature. As long as the living entities are situated in the lower 4 stages of life, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, and Vijnanamaya, they are considered to be in the material condition of life. But as soon as one reaches the stage of Anandamaya, he is a liberated soul. This Anandamaya stage is explained in the Bhagavad Gita as the Brahma Bhuta stage. There it is said that in the Brahma Bhuta stage of life there is no anxiety and no hankering. This stage begins when one is equally disposed toward all living entities, and it then expands to the stage of Krishna consciousness. So, when you become equally disposed toward all living entities, you realize equality. And then, when it expands to the stage of Krishna consciousness, that is, you see oneness. You see that you have a soul, all other living entities have souls, and present in the body also is the Paramatma. So you see the equality of all living entities, because everyone is a walking temple of Krishna. All living entities, some are walking and some are not walking, like the trees. But you see, even if it's only theoretically, that Krishna is in the heart of every living entity. And therefore, you do not see the body anymore. You see the connection to Krishna of all living entities. That can be microbes, ants, snakes, gorillas, whatever. So, that equality and oneness is very important. So oneness in the sense that we all have eternal souls, including the insects and the birds and the aquatics, etc. Okay, so there it is said that in the Brahma Bhuta stage of life, there's no anxiety and no hankering. This stage begins when one is equally disposed toward all living entities. Well, as it says in the 5th chapter, last verse. Bhaktaram yakitapasam sarvalokam surhidam sarvabhutanam gyatvaman santim richati. So this surhidam sarvabhutanam, this is to treat everyone equally, or to see this equality of all living entities, because we all have a relationship with Krishna. Even the worst person still has a relationship with Krishna. And Krishna is present in the heart of everyone as Paramatma, and is present in every atom of the universe. So when you develop that understanding, even if it is theoretical, you become Brahmabhuta Prasanatma, na sochiti, na kanksati. You no longer have any lamentation and no longer any hankerings. Or hankerings are like strong material desires. You replace all those desires with the desire to please Guru and Krishna. And you are very dedicated to service. Just like many, many years ago, over 50 years ago, Prabhupada told these two brothers to stay in Mayapur and never leave. And they did it. One of them unfortunately left his body, but the other one is still there. But they both stayed there. The only time they ventured out was to preach, to help raise money to build the big temple there. So they were completely dedicated to following Prabhupada's order. That order was you should always stay in Mayapur and worship the deities and preach. So that type of determination to follow the spiritual master's order integrally is pure Krishna consciousness, okay? Where we don't have any other desire than simply to stay in one place and preach and help people become Krishna conscious. So that is a rare thing, but it's an important thing, because we've had many lifetimes already. Obviously we've gone through 8,400,000 different species. That's many, many millions and millions of years of existence in the material world. So why not use one lifetime to completely dedicate ourselves to Krishna consciousness, right? And put a stop to the whole process of samsara, birth and death. So it says, the hankering for advancement in devotional service is not the same as hankering for sense gratification in material existence. In other words, hankering remains in spiritual life, but becomes purified. Similarly, when our senses are purified, they are freed from all material stages, namely Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, and Vijnanamaya, and they become situated in the highest stage, Anandamaya, or blissful life in Krishna consciousness. The Mayavadi philosophers consider Anandamaya to be the state of being merged in the Supreme. To them, Anandamaya means that the super soul and the individual soul become one. But the real fact is that oneness does not mean merging into the Supreme and losing one's own individual existence. Merging into the spiritual existence is the living entity's realization of qualitative oneness with the Supreme Lord in its aspects of eternity and knowledge. So, why doesn't it explain bliss? Why does it say bliss? Because we can never emulate Krishna's bliss, because it's always increasing, right? But we are coexistent as eternal souls, and we can participate also in Krishna's knowledge. But in bliss, that is always increasing, and we just doing catch-up. We cannot really actually equal it or surpass it. So there are certain things that we are co-equal with Krishna, and other things that will never be co-equal with him. But we can participate in them. See? So, but the actual Anandamaya blissful stage is attained when one is engaged in devotional service. That is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Mad bhaktim labbate param. So that is the 18th chapter, 54th verse, if I'm not mistaken. Here, Lord Krishna states that the Brahmabhuta Anandamaya stage is complete only when there is an exchange of love between the Supreme and the subordinate living entities. Unless one comes to this Anandamaya stage, his breathing is like the breathing of a bellows in a blacksmith's shop. His duration of life is like that of a tree, and he is no better than the lower animals like the camels, hogs, and dogs. So this reciprocal relationship with Krishna, loving relationship with Krishna, is the most relishable thing in the life of a devotee. And we learn to do that by going out on Sankirtan, also by worshiping the deities and cooking for the deities, and doing all kinds of services for the deities, and also devotees, offering services to the devotees. And in this way, we develop this reciprocal loving relationship with Krishna. And of course, if you serve a pure devotee, that's even better than serving the Lord himself, because the pure devotees are very dear to the Lord, and he's very pleased to see them nicely served by devotees. Okay, so it says, undoubtedly the eternal living entity cannot be annihilated at any point, but the lower species of life exist in a miserable condition, whereas one who is engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord is situated in the pleasurable or Anandamaya status of life. The different stages described above are all in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although in all circumstances there exists both the Supreme Personality of Godhead and living entities, the difference is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead always exists in the Anandamaya stage, whereas the subordinate living entities, because of their minute position as fragmental portions of the Supreme Lord, are prone to fall to the other stages of life. Although in all the stages, both the Supreme Lord and living entities exist. In other words, in the Anandamaya stage, one reciprocates with the Lord in transcendental pastimes, and one is completely captivated by the Lord. This is explained also in Bhagavad Gita, in the 18th chapter, 66th verse, where it says, one should be attracted to the beautiful vision of Krishna. This is the last paragraph of 1866. His name is Krishna because he is all attractive. And one who becomes attracted by the beautiful, all-powerful, omnipotent vision of Krishna is fortunate. There are different kinds of transcendentalists. Some of them are attached to the impersonal Brahman vision. Some of them are attracted by the super soul feature, etc. But one who is attracted to the personal feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and above all, one who is attracted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Krishna himself, is the most perfect transcendentalist. In other words, devotional service to Krishna in full consciousness is the most confidential part of knowledge, and this is the essence of the whole Bhagavad Gita. Karma yogis, empiric philosophers, mystics, and devotees are all called transcendentalists, but one who is a pure devotee is the best of all. The particular words used here, ma sucha, don't fear, don't hesitate, don't worry, are very significant. One may be perplexed as to how one can give up all kinds of religious forms and simply surrender unto Krishna, but such worry is useless. So, this Mahasucha, don't worry, don't hesitate, don't fear, is very important. It's called a leap of faith. When you actually are not concerned about all the anxieties of other people, and you put all those anxieties away, you say, look, I have complete faith in Krishna. If I strictly follow the regulative principles, without any deviation, and I have pure desires to please Krishna, then Krishna will help me in every way, and I should not have any fear, anxiety, or any doubt in my mind. See? So that's the position we want to attain, that type of complete faith in the Lord, even in the most difficult situations, and to always be expecting the mercy of the Lord and depending on the mercy of the Lord and not depending on any material strategies. So people have so many material strategies. If I buy this product in China and I sell it in the United States, I'll make so much money. Those type of strategies are not really good. We should be thinking, if I can chant my rounds nicely every day and go to sleep early and wake up early, take part in the morning program, and get my inoculation to face the world, whether it's going out on Sankirtan or I have to go to work to earn an honest living. But I need that inoculation every day of Krishna consciousness. And I'm not going to compromise that. So in that way, a devotee becomes ecstatic and becomes very, very interested in pleasing Krishna in all different ways. So that's why it says one should be attracted by the beautiful vision of Krishna. His name is Krishna because he is all attractive. One who becomes attracted by the beautiful, all-powerful, omnipotent vision of Krishna is fortunate. Okay. So, this is also explained in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, verse number 5, where it says, that knowledge of the field of activities and of the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is especially presented in Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as to cause and effect. So in the purport, it says, as stated before, Kshetra is the field of activities, and there are two kinds of Kshetragya, the individual living entity and the supreme living entity. So Kshetra means the body, and Gya means knowledge of the body, right? So there's two knowers of the body. There's the individual living entity and there's the Supreme Lord as Paramatma. As stated in the Taittiriya Upanishad 2.9, Brahma Pucham Patista, there is a manifestation of the Supreme Lord's energy known as Anamaya, dependence upon food for existence. This is a materialistic realization of the Supreme. Then, in Pranamaya, after realizing the Supreme Absolute Truth in food, one can realize the Absolute Truth in the living symptoms or life forms. In Jnanamaya, the realization extends beyond the living symptoms to the point of thinking, feeling, and willing. Then, there is Brahman realization called Vijnanamaya, in which the living entity's mind and life symptoms are distinguished from the living entity himself. In other words, he sees the difference between the body and the soul. The next and supreme stage is Anandamaya, realization of the all-blissful nature. Thus, there are 5 stages of Brahman realizations, or realization of the Supreme Absolute Truth, which are called Brahma Pucham. Out of these, the first 3, Anamaya, Pranamaya, and Jnanamaya, involve the fields of activities of the living entities. Transcendental to all these fields of activities is the Supreme Lord, who is called Anandamaya. The Vedanta Sutra also describes the Supreme by saying, Anandamaya Vyasat, the Supreme Personified Godhead, is by nature full of joy. To enjoy his transcendental bliss, he expands into Vijnanamaya, Pranamaya, Jnanamaya, and Anamaya. In the field of activities, the living entity is considered to be the enjoyer, and different from him is the Anandamaya. That means that if the living entity decides to enjoy in dovetailing himself with the Anandamaya, then he becomes perfect. This is the real picture of the Supreme Lord as the supreme knower of the field, and the living entities as the subordinate knower, and the nature of the field of activities. one has to search for this truth in the Vedanta Sutra or Brahma Sutra. It is mentioned here that the codes of the Brahma Sutra or the Vedanta Sutra are very nicely arranged according to cause and effect. Some of the sutras or aphorisms are Na vidyad ashrute. This is a description of the field of activity, the body. 2.3.2, Vedanta Sutra. And Natma Shrute, 2.3.18 in the Vedanta Sutra. And Parat to touch Shrute, 2.3.40. The first aphorism indicates the field of activities. The second indicates the living entity, and the third indicates the Supreme Lord, the summum bonum among all the manifestations of various entities. So, this is the gradual advancement of Krishna consciousness. We begin with the body. I am the body, right? It's called Anamaya, Pranamaya, and Manamaya. And then one realizes that I'm not the body. I am the soul in the body. That's Vijnanamaya. And then one realizes, but wait a minute, I'm in an eternal relationship with Krishna, the super soul, who's also in the body, and is also the knower of the body. And he's the closest person to me. And when I become cognizant of his existence, always with me, I become ecstatic. I become happy. And I don't have any worries anymore. So that worrying and anxiety is a symptom that we're still caught up in the clutches of Maya. When that anxiety and fear goes away, and we become confident that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and if I just simply engage in pure devotional service, all problems of life are not going to deter me in any way. And somehow or other, even in a mysterious way, Krishna will always protect me, and we'll be able to get through all different situations of life. So that becomes the conviction of the advanced devotee, and he becomes very happy and very not interested in going anywhere. They're just interested in staying in one place and developing Krishna consciousness. So this is all interesting information if we want to make spiritual advancement. Otherwise, we see there are such things as mixed devotees who are still have mixed motives. They're still devotees, but they're not on the highest level. And that doesn't mean they can't be on the highest level, but they still have these attractions in the material world. When we become completely attracted by Krishna and completely satisfied by serving Krishna, then we attain that higher level. And we become a sadhana siddha. We become perfect by strictly following sadhana bhakti. And later on, when the gurus see that we are really sincere about this, they introduced us to raganuga bhakti. We should not be anxious to attain raganuga bhakti. That's something that will be given to us once Krishna is satisfied with our devotional service. That could take a long time, but we shouldn't be in any hurry about that. We should be more concerned about executing Krishna consciousness very properly. Okay, we'll stop right there. Are there any questions?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. So, I'm seeing some parallel between Maslow, created this hierarchy of needs.
Who?
Maslow's theory of hierarchical needs.
Oh, the management.
Yeah.
So management guru.
He's a management. But he's actually essentially copied it and and taken away the spiritual aspect of it.
Right.
But here is what his theory says. At the level 1 is the physiological needs.
Right.
Level 2 is the safety needs. Level 3 is love and belonging. Level 4 is esteem, and level 5 is self-actualization. Actualization.
Okay.
So, but the real definition should be all these Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and Anandamaya.
Well, I mean, what does he mean by, well, in those different stages, does he ever mention God?
No, the self-actualization.
That's the self. That's
So
the God.
Yeah,
Right?
they take out the God.
They
and you
replace it
become the
with
God.
the living entities, the God. Right? Yeah, so you see, is he followed by a lot of people? Like,
Yeah, this is what every student probably grows up learning.
right. Well, this is the sad state of education today, and it's all about self-aggrandizement. Look that word up, aggrandizement.
This theory actually is about person has struggled for one stage, but once that stage is satisfied, he promoted to the next stage. So for the very basic root level is like struggling for existence, like food, shelter, and clothes.
Right.
Once that needs are satisfied, then he looks for the another needs like social or like social like
Recognition.
self-actualization.
Yeah.
He advances from one stage to another. Once the one stage is
This is explained also that in the beginning, well, of course, you have the Brahma Pucham, which we discussed, right? But in general, for the materialists, they begin by wanting material, let's say, development through business, economic development. When they have economic development, then they want sense gratification. When they have sense gratification, then they want recognition and fame. And then, when they have this recognition and fame, they want to be God. Right? So this was problem with Hitler, problem with Mao Zedong, the problem with Stalin. If Hitler won the war, he was already being worshipped like God by the people. But if he won that war, he would have been, pronounced to the whole world to be God himself. You see? So it all begins with this economic development. And when there's economic success, they want to have a lot of sense gratification. And then when there's sense gratification, they want to be distinguished. And then when they get the distinguishment and so forth, they want to be God. Right? And then Mao Zedong's wife said once, better than sex is power. She said that. She said, better than sex is power, having absolute power. Then you can do anything you want. No one can stop you or question you. You see? So that means that, they become like God. Or, poor imitation gods. And they're very selfish. So this has been the problem with dictators throughout history. And it's still going on today. Just like Trump, he would have, if he won the election, or if he could have stopped Biden and by some strategy remained the president, he would have been, he would have considered himself invincible. But it didn't happen because he was not pure. Okay, so what's his name again?
I think it's called Maslow.
Maslow. Okay,
LW.
send me his
Yeah,
send me his information.
So that's
Okay.
the theory. It's called Maslow's theory of hierarchy.
Hierarchy.
Yeah, Maslow's need theory of hierarchy. It's basically needs.
hierarchy of needs.
Needs. Okay. What you need is Krishna. That's what you need, right? Okay. It's mismanagement. Yeah. Okay, we'll stop right there. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Oh, yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Haribol.
Yesterday I was reading a book about Bhagavatam,
Yes.
and then in that there were the 4 yugas.
Yes.
So now we're in Kali Yuga. Do we go to Satya Yuga next?
Yes.
How, do you know how?
Yeah. When people become so degraded in Kali Yuga, in another 400, over 400,000 years from now, Kalki avatar will come. It's an avatar of Krishna, and he'll kill everybody. And at that time, the devotees will be existing still, but they'll be underground. They'll be hiding, because if they show themselves, they'll be killed right away. And then he liberates the devotees, and then starts Satya Yuga. So everything is cyclic in the universe. There are cycles, birth, death, old age, disease. Birth, death, old age, and disease. Birth, death, old age, and disease. So there are many cycles in nature, and that's what maintains nature, these cycles. The carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle, phosphorus cycle, wind cycle, water cycle. They're all cycles, and they're all repeating themselves and renewing themselves. So you also have the yuga, Satya Yuga and Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga. These are cycles. And they repeat themselves 1,000 times in one day of Brahma. So, what should we think about this? We should think, how are we going to get out of this? Why would you? It's just like being on a merry-go-round the rest of your life. You're just going around and around and around and around. It's not a life. You want to be free of it. So how do you become free of this? It's by attaining this Anandamaya stage, transcendental bliss, in serving Krishna. Then you can stay anywhere in the world, even in hell, and you're not disturbed, because you're always engaged in Krishna's service. And then doesn't matter where you're in hell or you're in heaven, in the material world or the spiritual world, because everywhere you go, you're just engaged in Krishna's service, and you're completely dependent on Krishna. So then you're liberated, like Narada Muni is a liberated person. So instead of Maslow, we should be studying Narada. He's the real success, right? He knows what the real needs are, right? Haribol. So don't study Maslow, study Narada. Then you won't go wrong. Okay, we stop now. Haribol. All glories to Prabhupada. Maslow is very low. Very, very low.
And he brings the whole Maslow.
Yeah. He makes a mess. He should be called Meslow. Go ahead. Start.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma.
Bandho moi savadana mate.
Bandho moi savadana mate.
Jahara prasade bai e bhavatoriya jai.
Janara prasade bai he bhavatoriya jai.
Krishna prapti hoy jaha hoy te.
Krishna prapti hoya te.
Guru mukha padma vakya chitite koriya kya.
Guru mukha padma vakya chittete koriya agya.
Arana kori ho mane asha.
Arana koriya mane asa.
Shri Guru charane rati aise yutama gati.
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati.
Jai prasade pure sarva asha.
Ye prasade pure sarvasa.
चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से.
Chakshudan Dil Jai Janme Janme Prabhu Se.
चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से.
Chakshudan Dil Jai Janme Janme Prabhu Se.
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो.
Divya Jnani Prakasito.
प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते.
Hema Bhakti Chavoy Deya Vidya Vinasa Jate.
वेद गाय जहाँ रचरितो.
Videgaya Janara Charino.
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu.
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu.
Lokinath Lokira Jivana.
Videgaya Janara Charino.
Aha Prabhu Koro Doya Deho More Pada Chaya.
Prabhu Doya Deya Muri Padachaya.
Ibijas Dushya Tribhuvana.
Devyas Sati Bhuvana.
Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana.
Prabhupada Patita Bhavana.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Sahamiti Damini
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva
Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva
Nitya Gara Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitya Gara Hari Bol
Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Gaura Premanandi Hari Bol Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paramajika Chasta Tadasatara Shishiman His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shikoho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samkunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mayapura Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the Assembled Divine. All glories to the Assembled Divine. All glories to the Assembled. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guru. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Patita Pavana Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishna Krishna. Hari Bol, Hari Bol. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which you can attain pure devotional service.
I bow to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and Master devotees. O Lokin, O Master, be merciful unto me. Give me the shade of your lotus feet. Your frame is spread all over the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet, Srila Prabhupada.